From Ride the West Horse Expo in Spokane, Washington, Rainsman presents Part 9 of a 13-week series with Sharon Camarillo. This week, Sharon works to reinforce some basic skills and a remedial round pen lesson.
What we're going to be working on this evening is a remedial round pen. And we choose the round pen because it's a safe environment. This round pin is probably about, 40 feet in diameter, maybe 50. There's enough room for me to get away from the horse if I'm having problems, and there's enough room for the horse to get away from me when I send him out and want to gain some attention. So a round pin is a really good environment to not only train your young horses, but also work on your riding skills. These older horses that we see, when we put them in training, we start them on the road in competition, many times start to ride into problems. So it's more than just changing bridles or getting a bigger whip or sharpening our spurs. Sometimes we have to come back to basics, bring them back in the round pin environment to be able to get their feet moving, get them moving comfortably and confidently up into the bridle. So we're going to use the round pin in this situation as remedial or repair. I have the opportunity to be a professional horsewoman, so my working environment is either in an arena or at a clinic or in the barn. Your working environment, many cases, is in an office. It's away from your horses. So the time that you allocate to spend with your animals should be down the list from the time you allocate for your family and obviously the way that you make a living. So priorities take precedent, and so many times the horse gets the short end of the stick. Today, horses are no longer necessities. They're luxuries. And the knowledge that we need to control these individuals has been lost from generation to generation because we've gone into automation. So we get the money together and we buy this horse that we've always had a dream to own. We've had a dog here and there, but now we've got a horse. Our dog was a little out of control. He didn't really come when we called him. So we're going to use those same training skills on our horses. These horses aren't pets. And every single one of you know a friend or a relative or an acquaintance that's been injured by the gentlest and kindest of horses. These horses need to understand that they're big and that they have their own space. Horses have a natural tendency to flee when they're frightened. And when we go to a competition, we only have control or some control of the horses that we have in our hand. We don't have control when the tractor driver starts the engine on his tractor, or the water truck starts up, or a horse pulls back from a panel and starts a chain reaction, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of a wreck. So to help prevent injuries, and sometimes I say it's not if you get hurt, it's when, and we've got some professional trainers out here that I know Todd will agree you're always paying attention to what you're riding because these horses have a mind of their own. They don't have a human analytical mind, and they respond with consistency on the behalf of the rider with pressure release, reward, discipline. It takes time. Some horses are more trainable than others. And that's the responsibility of the rider, owner, to be a manager in identifying the challenges that your horse presents you. It's all a learning opportunity, and God bless America and the fact that we have the chance to live in a country that affords us the spare time and the extra money to pursue our dreams and goals. These horses are a wonderful addition to any of our lives. They can also be very challenging. So I've got Alicia's little horse here. His name's Big Red. We saw him last night for the first time. He was carrying his pole a little low. He was heavy on the front end, and he didn't want to collect in through his barrel. So this morning in one of our seminars, we changed equipment out. We put him back in his snaffle to rebalance him, and we complemented our snaffle with a German type of martingale. The German martingale is an aid in getting this horse collected, but then we had to drive him up from behind because he was not paying attention to Alicia's cues when she squeezed her legs and asked for impulsion that drives the horse forward from power from the hind end through the front. So we're going to work on some of those resources here in the remedial round pen. Remedial, the horse is 6 years old. He was broken, started in the round pen, went to the racetrack, and now we're going to bring him in to supple him up. Please note the equipment. Whenever we do any foundational work, we come back into foundation training equipment. This is an O-ring snaffle. It's got a twisted wire mouthpiece about the size of my finger. On our older horses, I'm not going to use a smooth snaffle because I want to work for a nice light feel to get my horse up into my hands. The smooth snaffles in so many cases allow a horse to lean heavy on the forehand, and I like to use a little lateral control, left, right with my hands, to travel down through the reins, to utilize the bit to help keep my horses soft. I maybe have a tendency to use a little more bridle and a little lighter hand. So with the twisted wire snaffle, I'm taking away all the aids as in a choice of martingale. I'm not going to come in here initially with any equipment except my snaffle. Now the round pen offers a great resource to introduce new equipment. How many of you, when you're competing on your timed event horse, use a tie down? How many of you have tried to use a tie down, but you think, well, my horse doesn't move up into it? What about bringing a horse into the round pen with the tie down, move him around so he understands that he can move his feet and the tie down's not going to bite him? How many of you experiment with changes of equipment to gain control or to regain control as you start adding speed? You go to a horse fair, you see a vendor, you buy one of those great numerical bits, and the first thing you do, you throw it on your horse, you run him in the arena, and you say, well, he doesn't like it. So the round pen provides a wonderful resource then to introduce equipment on a horse without the influence of the rider on the horse's back. So we're coming in neutral, and I'm going to show you 3 very elementary resources in building the communication and the balance that you're going to need when you're on the horse's back. I'm going to comment on Alicia's horse. He's not running over me. He's not being too aggressive. He's watching out here just a little bit, but he still knows that I've got him at the end of my rein. So whether it's a snaffle and a split rein or a halter and a lead rope, I still want to have a distance from this horse that he understands that he stays in his area and he respects mine. He's not up on, oh, hello. He's not up on top of me. So I'm going to take my off rein with this snaffle. This is one of the resources of utilizing split reins, and I'm going to tie it up to the saddle horn on the outside of the horse and get it safely out of the way with enough slack in the rein to be able to allow this horse to give to the inside rein pressure. I'm going to initially tie this horse to his tail. So I'll take my split rein, come through the stirrup itself, and I'll just pull his tail around. Some riders or trainers braid a ring in the tail, but I like to just make a loop out of my tail. I can take the rein itself, make a nice little half hitch, pull it down nice and snug, and I want you to heed this warning that when I let this rein go and that tail hits that hawk, woo, hello, he says, something's got me. What is it? Fine, work it out yourself. That's your issue, not mine. But be safe, because this was a good example. That horse felt that little movement on his hip there, and some of these volatile colts, yeehaw, off they go. I've got a safe environment, no sharp corners, and I'm going to turn my back on this horse and just let him work that out himself. It's not my issue, it's his issue. And he's going to experiment with the fact that that rein applies a little bit of pressure to the left side of his face. As a reminder, the snaffle affects 3 different pressure points: the lip, the bar, and the tongue. And when we have that lateral control to the left, there's also some pressure off the right ring on the right side of the horse's jaw. He's still a little concerned, and I want him to figure out that there is a pressure release going on here. The pressure is applied when he tries to stiffen out his back, his neck, and his poll. And there's no way that he's going to reward himself until he flexes in the spine, gives in the neck, and relaxes into the bridle. How long am I going to leave him? I don't know. Probably no longer than 15 minutes, possibly 3 or 4. I want to reward the effort, and this horse is settling in quite good. He's not chomping, he's not experimenting with a way to get away from the pressure. He's starting to figure out that when I give to the rein pressure, it takes the pressure off of his mouth. Okay, looks pretty good so far. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this horse to move up into the bridle and carry himself forward, which he has yet to do that. He's not moving in front, he's planting his front end, and he's moving around the front end with his hind end. So far this horse hasn't learned or hasn't understood that I want him to confidently move into the bridle. The rein is adjusted only tight enough to the left to provide him his own resource to take the pressure off, to remove the pressure. I don't want him tied around so his nose is crimped to the stirrup. I just want him tied about in a, 75, 80 degree position. Give him the opportunity to be able to move forward without folding, wrapping his neck around. And once he does give in that spine and in that neck, then it releases the pressure on the rein. You can see that there's a bend in the spine by noticing the saddle, how it's pushing to the outside. So that's pretty much what I'm starting to want there. This horse is moving in front, therefore it's giving the hind end a place to go. And I'm going to force him or ask him to move up, out away from me, out to the outside of the pen, and he says, I don't think I can move up into that bridle. Applying pressure, applying pressure, applying pressure, applying pressure, applying pressure. He says, what am I going to do? You're going to move out, you're going to move up into the bridle. And he moved out, and I'm going to turn my back away from him. Release my eye contact, release the pressure of my body into this horse. That was a good job, thank you. He's not sure that he can move forward carrying the bit. He thinks he's got to follow that rein around. So again, I'm going to ask him one more time to move up, move forward. Nice job, nice job. Ask him for just a little more movement. Very good. Release the pressure. That's enough. I've been talking and flapping my lips out here, so I've been out here maybe 10 minutes or so. You know, in this demonstration, the fact that he's moved up into the bridle, kept an arc in his body, moved his front end, very important, and drove up from behind is a nice reward. So I'm going to walk up to him, reward him, and I'm going to let him loose. Now the tail area gives me the best leverage to build a soft and flexible lateral position. Lateral being left to right. And before we can ever work on a longitudinal flexion, which goes through the back, the neck, and the poll, I've got to get a horse laterally supple from left to right. Flexing the neck, the shoulder, the spine. Moving the front end out of the way and driving up from behind. But we want to make sure with the adjustment and length of rein that he can give to the rein pressure and reward the effort. So again, I want him to figure it out himself. In this clinic environment, We're now working on the second exercise. When you're home, let's do one direction a day. One exercise a day. You don't want to overdo it. You can get a horse way too noodle-necked, way too numb to the rider if you overwork him in the round pen. So he's figuring that out pretty good. He's 6 years old. He remembers some of his round pen work when he was younger. He's smart to say, okay, I can't straighten out, so I'm going to have to put a bend in my spine. Again, note the saddle. It's setting off to the outside. Nice job. He's moving up in front and pushing up from the hind end. And Alicia, today when we were riding him in the arena, we had to kind of chase him forward, didn't we, to get him moving out. So the round pen in a remedial capacity is a really nice resource to get your horses nice, responsive, and moving. Very important that we get them responding to the pressure release concept, moving out in front, driving confidently up from the hind end, just pointing out there to that shoulder, move out in front, and if he didn't respond to that request, I can get a little rope or a little piece of equipment that I can throw up there at the shoulder and get him responding, moving up. That gives a place for the hind end to move. Remember to reward the effort, reward the pressure. I'm going to take my eyes and body presence away from him as a reward for him to responding. Nice job. How long have we been here? 3 minutes? That would have been enough for his session in the round pen. I usually like to put my horses in the round pen, especially if they're having a problem, if I'm introducing a new bit, if I'm starting a young horse, if I have a horse that's a little anxious, I'll put them in the round pen just to kind of let them work it out on their own without the influence of the rider on the horse's back. The last area that I want to talk to you about is checking our horse's straight back. We've worked on areas of lateral flexion, the neck, getting a horse to give in the face, the rib cage and the hip. Now let's just take our little snaffle and let's tie our horse straight back and start to work on that suppleness from the pole through the neck and spine. Get our horse to understand that when we close our fingers and take a hold of the rein, pole elevates, horse comes back and responds to the pressure. So can he drop his face down and get away? Let him go ahead and try to pull that cantle out of that saddle. It doesn't work. So this is a nice resource here to start to get this horse to understand that a little pressure on the rein needs to get a request that he elevates the pole and tucks away from the pressure. Now, I want to move this horse in this exercise into the bridle. So we want to make sure that we are in a safe position. And you know a horse can kick out, gosh, I don't know, I've seen them kick twice their length, it seems like, when I think I'm in a safe position. Sometimes I'm not, but you want to make sure, especially on those young horses, that you don't get kicked. I'm stepping behind the cinch, and I'm asking this horse to move out forward from the hind end. Nice job. And just think ahead of him. You kind of saw his anticipation to slow himself down. And that's when I'm going to apply the pressure. I want him carrying, moving his hind end up into the bridle. When I move behind the cinch, I drive him forward. And when I move in front of the cinch, I ask him to stop. Now, a lot of philosophies in the round pen. I do not want my horse to come to me, because I've had horses come to me on their hind legs. I do want him to stop and face me. Any of you have horses that sometimes won't stop and face you? They're avoiding your pressure. They think if they don't look at you, they won't see you. What we do there, we try it again. We say, hey, buddy, Move out. Remember, I'm the one that's spending my hard-earned money at clinics, reading books, working 2 jobs just to feed you. And you get to learn to read these horses. You want them focusing in, and Big Red's doing a nice job watching me, paying attention. Very nice. And again, I don't want him to come to me. He moved up in the bridle, moved his front end, drove up from the hind end. That's a good little lesson. And we'll reward the effort by letting him go. Now, I don't want to confuse you. I showed you 3 very basic elementary moves. Checked him around to his tail, checked him around to his cantle, checked him straight back to behind the cantle. That's really 3 days worth of work. So don't misinterpret. Don't think you want to get it all done in one day. What did we say earlier? Rome was not built in a day. It took generations. And these horses aren't made overnight. It takes a lot of repetition, a lot of pressure release, consistency. And you'll be amazed that the relationship that you create with your horse in the round pen on the ground will carry through to the control you have when you're on the horse's back.
Reinsman is proud to bring you this 13-week series of Sharon Camarillo's Barrel Racing Clinic from Ride the West. Visit us at www.reinsman.com. For more information on Sharon's horsemanship and barrel racing clinics, visit her at www.sharoncamarillo.com. Next week, Sharon begins a 2-part presentation of gymnastic exercises for the barrel horse. So join us again next week right here on Horse TV. This Sharon Camarillo series is produced by Advent Communications. Contact us at clinictv@aol.com.